I'm really honored and thank you again for the support that you are giving us for this conference.
Thank you very much
for the second time. And yes, so my today's presentation will be a little bit different from the previous one, as I will not focus on the particular country, and I will summarize and consolidate the aspects of the government forming space law and policy from national to European level, and from this perspective. So I will focus a little bit broader on the new space ecosystem. I will try to compare the old space approach to new space approach. Then I will try to introduce the role of governments in the space ecosystem, but from the national perspective, and innovative space ecosystems based on national space legislations, as well as the space governance at European level. And as it was said already, there are some countries, as previous speaker said, that they are working on the national space legislations. On the other hand, we have countries with established space legislation from the domestic perspective. So we see within Europe the distinction between the countries that they have the full space law, like domestic space law. It's 12 countries in the European Space Agency. We have countries who has a fragmented space law, as well as we have countries which are drafting the space law, and they are developing the space law. And the most of the countries who are developing the space law is the countries from CE region. So I will try to a little bit focus for the CE region perspective. So a little bit about the new space economy and the new space by the numbers. That's the numbers from 2022, and I'm indicating them to compare them with the current situation. So we have the commercial satellites, which is a huge number of deployed satellites, the huge number of launches, and the billion global space economy revenue. An experimental model has been developed to assess the economic effects of a collision event through the global value chains when it comes to the Kessler syndrome, which is probably well known for you. And it was estimated to losses of 191.3 billion. So we can see here the scale of potential disaster that can happen into our orbit and how much it will cost if it happens. The new space ecosystem. Here we see some numbers about the new space ecosystem. The 464 billions is estimated the value of the space ecosystem. But what I want to put attention at is the vertical perspective of the space ecosystem. The manufacturing aspects, the launching aspects, the ground segment operations, services. So we see how broad the space economy is, how broad this covers, and the applications, sat navigation, sat communication, Earth observations, and others. But what the most important is, still, this is estimates from 2022, and look for the commercial client type, for the government civil one, and defense one. It will be important further in another perspective. So the old space during the Cold War, it was characterized by the main space powers. And it was the institutional space, where the military space activities were on the front, then navigation constellations, space science, and government-funded programs. Companies primarily serving as contractors for government projects. Now, the commercialization just developed, and we have a growing importance of developing countries as players in the space industry, new business services with commercialization potential, and the key space stakeholders, which covers government agencies, international organizations, private companies, private investors, research institutions, international organizations, and users. So governance of this whole space stakeholders ecosystem is really, really hard, and it needs to be well planned. So in 2023, the situation has changed a little bit. So according to the Eurocouncil study, government space budget reached 117 billion in 2023, and it's much more than the commercial, the civil programs, and it rises because of the defense spending, which estimated value almost $59 billion. Actually, there are a lot of countries within Europe that they are introducing the national space defense strategies. Inter alia Luxembourg, United Kingdom, France, and they are dedicating the special space defense budget to their own strategies and programs, which is something which hasn't been observed before. On this slide, you can see the inputs of nations of countries to the budget of the space industry, and of course the United States is the biggest player here, but you can see more numbers, and it was estimated in 2023. So the scale of investment in the space is growing rapidly and quickly. Space governance overview. As I said at the beginning, I will try to somehow summarize the aspects that are overall. So in 2019, there were around 72 national space agencies. ESA member states has different priorities in the space governance and national strategies. National priorities, however, mainly cover technological areas such as science and exploration, Earth observation, integrated applications, satellite communications, launchers, navigation, sustainable development, and motivation for space capabilities. These aspects are common in all strategies analyzed. And as far as the CE space governance model is concerned, most countries rely on joint coordination between several ministers and various related public agencies. So it's not the rule that the space governance is just within the space agency or within one ministry. It will be visible in the next charter. So the CE region countries model is more fragmented, as it will be seen later. Here are some examples of countries from the CE region. As Poland, Hungary, Czech Republic, Slovakia, Slovenia, Romania, Latvia. Responsible ministry, for example, you can see in Czech Republic or Slovakia, how is it fragmented. And national agency, other entity which is connected with the even industry. We have space offices, we have space agencies, we have departments, and so on. And on this graph, you can see which ministers are mainly responsible for space governance and space activities. Education, science, research, the economy, industry, transport, communication, that's the most ministries that are responsible for space activities in the countries. However, still, it's really fragmented in this area. So there is a question. And then what came first? Space policy, space activities, or space law? The emergence of private space sector has made it possible for smaller and developing nations to implement space programs. Over 17 nations are operating space programs based on 2019 estimates. Existent of approximately 40 national space legislations worldwide. In Europe, within the European Space Agency, there are, as I mentioned, 12 members with national space legislation, 3 members with fragmented national space legislation, and 7 members without regulations dedicated to space activities, but in their space strategies and national space strategies, they willing to draft the space law. And a lot of them, they already have a ready draft, but of course the space sector is really developing, so they need to adjust and make a lot of amendments to it. There is a growing emergence of national defense space strategies. As I mentioned before, within the France, UK, and Luxembourg, already the space defense strategies were implemented. Here is another estimation of the countries within CE region. Here we can see, based on ESA STAR platform, that there are a lot of entities within these countries. However, the real numbers differ, as there are in practice there are smaller numbers. However, they are identify themselves with the space industry within this country, so we can see that the space industry is still growing, and that really big numbers. So what is contained in this national space strategies? The best practices in national space strategies concern the promotion of initiatives, international agreements, and participation in international fora. As I already mentioned, they propose a regulatory framework, promote clear national space legislation, creation of pipeline of talent, expertise through public support of research and education, workforce development, which is also common for all of the space strategies, industrial development through promoting industrial research and development activities, as well as establishing appropriate and long-term funding mechanisms for commercial projects. And then, it would seem that the answer to this question is clear. First, there was a space policy, space activities followed, and only then space law emerged. However, it's not that simple. History shows that the political effect of achievements in cosmonautics often proved to be so significant for state leaders that it determined the direction of development of space programs themselves. Strictly speaking, it was space policy to give an impetus to space activities. What is the issue with the national space legislations and innovative space ecosystem? A lot of countries, as we already heard, trying to make an innovative ecosystem in their domestic space sector through the national space legislation. For example, for regulating space resources activities, for regulating suborbital flights, or trying to create a favorable legal ecosystem containing the space activities. And here there are some examples. For example, Portugal, which somehow try to fasten the process of gaining the licenses by dividing them for different type of licenses, like unitary, global, or jointly licensed operations. We have also the Luxembourg law, which still covers the space resources activities and make the innovative ecosystems around this segment of the space activities. We have suborbital flights that I already mentioned, as in New Zealand, United States, United Kingdom, and the United Arab Emirates, that they want to make this ecosystem around the suborbital flights. So the national space legislations also act as a booster for the space activities and for the domestic space sector. So that's the one of the factors and instruments that the national space legislations want to be introduced. And how it looks at the European level. I will not go through all of the slides. However, here you can see the actions taken on European level, how to deal with the space activities, how to promote the space activities, and how to make a cooperation with space activities. The latest most important aspects and events was the EU Space Program, implementation of EU Space Program, EU Space Strategy for Security Defense, which is in the most important here, as it mentioned the implementation of EU space law at the European level. And what I said, there is an initiative for an EU space law. It envisages common EU rules addressing the safety, resilience, and sustainability of space activities and operation. Based on the based on this EU space strategy for security and defense, this proposal was mentioned. And according to this proposal, the 3 pillars of space law at the European level should appear: the safety pillar, the sustainability pillar, and resilience pillar. So this pillar should be the main drivers of implementing the EU space law. However, we are struggling with the Article 189 of the Lisbon Treaty, where there is an explicit indication that the European Union can establish the cooperation, shall draw up a European space policy, however, excluding any harmonization of the laws and regulations of the member states. But let's go back to the 3 pillars of EU space law, that it contains safety pillar, sustainability pillar, and resilience pillar, which can be somehow based on these regulations. So, conclusions. The favorable legal framework creates an environment for long-term space activities and space investments. Adaptation and integration of new technology by governments is the key aspect in this. Close cooperation with space startups, ventures, and innovative companies between the government and between these companies, and the government as a better partner for commercial space industry is the key aspect here. So thank you very much for your attention.